Hello guys, welcome to the biology lesson. This is the 2026 biology lesson number 14 on respiratory system. Okay, so this is lesson number 14 on respiratory system. So this is going to be a very long lesson with well organized notes, or rather an organized lesson. So guys, make sure you pay attention so that you benefit from this very good lesson with well organized notes. All right, so let's just get started. So we are talking about the respiratory system. So in our introduction we are saying, oh, in our introduction we want to remind each one of us to say all living organisms require energy to carry out life processes such as movement, growth, repair, and reproduction. We know. So, all living organisms which exist require energy. Okay? So, this energy they require for life processes such as movement. You require energy for movement, energy for growth, energy for repair, and reproduction. All right. So now this energy is released during respiration. That's why respiration is important. We need to talk about it. So this energy is released during respiration, which is a chemical process that requires the oxygen and produces carbon dioxide as a waste product. So respiration is a chemical reaction in cells which uses energy, or rather food such as glucose with oxygen, to release actually energy and carbon dioxide as a waste product. Now, for respiration to occur efficiently, or rather for respiration to happen efficiently or properly, organisms must be able to, number one, take in oxygen from their environment. All right, if respiration has to happen, what would happen to organisms is to take in oxygen from their environment. All right, then remove carbon dioxide as a waste product after respiration has already occurred. So this process is known as gaseous exchange, where oxygen is taken in and then carbon dioxide is given out. All right, so now we need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, um, that different animals have different animals have developed different respiratory organs depending on. So we are saying we have different kinds of animals. We have insects, we have human beings, then we have the fish. They all can't have the same type of respiratory system. All right, so this is why we are saying different animals have developed different respiratory organs depending on, number one, whether they live on land or in water. So an animal will develop a certain type of respiratory system depending on where it lives. If it lives on land, its respiratory system will be developed so that it is able to adapt to what happens on land. If it lives in water, its respiratory system will develop so that it is able to adapt living in water. All right, so these different organisms have developed different respiratory organs depending on whether they live on land or in water, to their body structure and size. Okay, so also depending on the amount of energy that an organism needs because of its body structure and size, it may have a different type of respiratory system that is able to match up with the type of structure and size. Okay, and also their metabolic demands. This is what I'm saying, like the energy, the the building up of cells, everything. Depending on these, so different animals have developed different respiratory organs, depending on whether they live on land or in water, their body size and structure, their metabolic demands. Now, let's talk about the respiratory organs of animals. All right. So as we teach according to the syllabus. as the notes are flowing, they are flowing according to the biology syllabus for grade 12 and GCE. So from there we move on to respiratory organs of animals. So here we are going now to be looking at what organs are involved in a respiratory in a respiratory system. Yes, which organs are involved in respiration or respiratory system? That's what now we want to talk about. So we will talk about the respiratory organs in insects. According to the syllabus for your biology grade 12, there are three respiratory organs we need to deal with, like respiratory organs in insects, respiratory organs in fish, and respiratory organs in humans. Three of them. And here we are starting with respiratory organs in insects. All right. So we are saying insects use a tracheal system for gaseous exchange. So the one insects use as a respiratory system, they use the tracheal system for gaseous exchange. Now, what is the structure of this tracheal system? We're saying the tracheal system consists of, number one, it consists of spiracles. Spiracles, what are they? These are small openings on the sides of the insect's body. So the spiracles are small openings on the sides of the insect's body. So here is an example of an insect. It could have been a fly, and then the small openings on the surface, these here are the spiracles. All right. So there are small openings on the sides of the insect's body. So these consist of the tracheal system of an insect. Okay, so they function as entry and exit points of air. So these are entry and also exit point of air. Here zoomed in, this is how a spiracle would look. It has a hole inside for entry of air and exit of air. So this is a part of the tracheal system. Then they can open and close to regulate gas exchange and prevent water loss. So these can open and close to regulate gas exchange and prevent water loss. So they can open to allow gases to come in and out, and then close to prevent the water loss. In case there's too much heat, these can close to ensure that an organism does not lose the water and end up dying. All right, so this is one structure of the tracheal system. Then the next one is the trachea. So we have the trachea. So trachea. So if you see, this is the spiracle. Then next to the spiracle is the trachea. Next to the spiracle is the trachea. All right. So let's proceed so that we understand what it is here. Sorry. So let's move here. So now trachea, what it is, we are saying these are air-filled tubes that branch from spiracles throughout the body. So these are air-filled tube that branch. So after the spiracle, there's a tube now. That tube now is a trachea. So the trachea, we are saying, is an air-filled tube that branch from spiracles throughout the body. So they are there from spiracle, you have tomatrachea, those lines there. Okay, let me try to zoom so that maybe you may have an opportunity to see clearly. So if this is a spiracles, then these stomach tubes here are the one we are referring to as the trachea. Okay, so this one here, this tube here. All right, so now what are we saying? They are supported by rings to prevent the collapse. So in a trachea inside here, there are rings like the one that are found in our windpipe, so that they are prevented from collapse. So supported by rings to prevent collapse. Okay, so now these distribute air to all body parts. So these they ensure that when air enters, is distributed to all body parts. Then another structure which is part of the tracheal system is the tracheos. So we have what we call the tracheos. All right. So tracheos, what are they? We are saying very fine tubes that branch from the tracheal. In short, when we say very fine tube, we are saying very small tubes that branch from the trachea. So these are tubes after the trachea. Now there will be other smaller tubes now that will come out as though they are branches. Smaller one after a big branch or tube, which is a trachea, you have other now smaller tubes branching from the trachea. These smaller tubes now are known as the tracheals. So like this one, this one, this one, and this one, they are all tracheals. All right. So very fine tubes that branch from trachea. So reach individual body cells. So these they ensure that they go and reach to individual body cells. Like as you can see, these they have reached this cell here, which or this tissue here, which is a muscle tissue there. So rich individual cells, then thin walled for efficiency or efficient gaseous exchange or gas exchange. So these have got their walls are very thin so that gases can diffuse from inside into the cells. Okay. Now, let us talk about function now. So when we talk of function, we are talking of the function of the tracheal system in the insect. What is the function of the tracheal system in the insect? So we are saying function is one, oxygen is delivered directly to body cells through the tracheal system. So oxygen gets delivered directly to body cells through the tracheal system. No lungs, no what. Then carbon dioxide is removed from cells and released through spiracles. So as much as oxygen is delivered directly to body cells, carbon dioxide is also removed through the spiracles. Okay? Blood is not involved in gas transport unlike fish and the humans. So in this, there's nothing like gas is going to move inside the blood. Nothing like that. The gas will just move in a fluid. It could be a fluid which is there. Then it will be able to, oxygen will be able to move through the fluid into body cells, and the carbon dioxide will diffuse out of the body cells into the fluid into the outside or environment. Alright, so blood is not involved in gas transport or in this tracheal system. This is an efficient system for small organisms. So because organisms have no blood, so they have developed a tracheal system which works very well or effective. All right. Then what is the advantage of this type of respiratory system? So advantages directly or direct oxygen delivered to tissues. So oxygen is delivered directly to body tissues. So number two, no need for respiratory pigments like hemoglobin. Like in humans, we need cells like cells that are like red blood cells with hemoglobin, so that that hemoglobin can bind or can bind with the oxygen to be transported to body cells. But in this case, the advantage is that no need for respiratory pigments like hemoglobin. Then efficient for the small body size of insects. All right, so next we move to the respiratory organs in fish. Okay, so we are saying fish breathe using gills, which are adapted for extra oxygen, for extract oxygen, or which are adapted to extract oxygen from water. So in short, the gill system is what is used in fish. So fish, they use the gill system there. So let's talk about the structure. The gills consist of one, what we call the gill arc. Gill arcs. So what are the gill arcs? Bone or cartilaginous or cartilaginous. Anyway, this way, how do we pronounce it? It should be cartilaginous structure, something like that. It's a bony or cartilaginous structure. This one here. So if we talk of a gill, this is a gill. The whole structure of this is a gill. When we remove it from inside there, the whole of this structure will be a gill. All right. So the whole of this structure, ladies and gentlemen, this structure will be a gill. The whole of this structure is actually a gill. Okay. So now this structure, which is a gill, it has got a part. That's why we are saying the gill consists of the gill ax, which is this part here in the middle there. That is the gill arc, not gill rake, the gill arc. So now this one now support and protects the gill filament. So the function of this gill arc ensures that it protects, it supports first and then protect the gill filaments. So the gill filaments are these ones here. So it supports them because they are fixed into it, and then make sure that they are protected from damage. All right. So we have the gill arc, which is a bone or cartilaginous structure, support and protects the gill filament. Then we have the gill filaments themselves as part of the gills. So the gill filament are these ones here. What are they? We are saying these are long finger-like structures extending from the gill axis. So these are long finger-like structure. So when we view them in front view, this should be a side view. This is a front view. When you view from this side, you look at this, it will look like this. So this is the whole structure like this one. It is a gill filament. Then this part here, it is what we call the lamella. Now here we have the gill arc, then we have the gill rake there. So this is the gill arc. Then this one is the filament. So the filament, when you look at it from the front view here, you see that it's the one we're saying it is long actually, then finger-like, it's look like a finger structure extending from the gill arc. So it is extending from the gill arc like that. So when you look at it in side view, it may look like this. When you look at it from that angle, you look through this angle, you turn this one so that you look at it through this angle, it may look like this. So gill filaments, long finger-like structures extending from the gill ax. Okay, so now, so these contain many blood capillaries. So gill filament contain many blood capillaries. That's why they even look red, because of the blood capillaries they have there. Provide large surface area for gas exchange. So these, they're there to provide large surface area for gas exchange. So gas exchange occurs on what? On gill filament. Then we have gill lamella. These, each part now of those, this is a gill filament, the whole of it. Now those two smaller parts now are called gill lamella. So these are thin plate-like surfaces on gill filaments. So thin plate-like surfaces on gill filaments, one cell thick for efficient diffusion. So in terms of thickness, they are very thin, such that they are one cell thick for efficient diffusion. So it is a site of actual gas exchange. So these lamella, they are the actual site for gas exchange. All right. Then next we go to what is known as the operculum. So here we actually do not have it. I'm going to show you in the next diagram that we are going to look at. So like that bone which is outside here, I think it's the one which covers the gill filament. So operculum, we are saying a hard flap covering and protecting the gills. So that cover here, which covers the gills, it is what we call the operculum. So this one, it's a hard flap covering and protecting the gills. So this one we are saying opens and closes during breathing movements. So it opens and closes during breathing movement. So we all have seen a fish in water. It opens and closes those operculum. So that's why we're saying opens and closes during breathing movements. So helps pump water over gills. So it helps to pump water to pass over the gills. All right, now let us talk about the functions of the gills now. So we are saying function: water enters through the mouth, water passes over the gill filaments and the lamellae, oxygen dissolved. So oxygen dissolved in water diffuses into the blood in gill capillaries. So as the water passes over the gill filament and the lamellae, oxygen which is in the water diffuses into the blood in gill capillaries. Then carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the water. So at that time when oxygen is getting into the blood, carbon dioxide also diffuses out of the blood into the water. So carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the water. Then water exits through the opacrum. So water now will come out through the opening of the opacrum. All right. So that's what we are talking about here. All right, let's proceed. So next now we come to the respiratory organs in humans or mammals, which is a mammal. So we are saying humans use lungs as respiratory organs for gaseous exchange with the air. Okay, so for humans, the main organ involved in gaseous exchange is the lung. All right, it is the lung. So the structure now, let's talk about the structure of this gaseous respiratory system of man. Okay, so we are saying the respiratory system includes one, nostrils. So nostrils, entry points for air. So here is a diagram to show what a nostril is. So these are nostrils there. Those two holes on our nose are what we call the nostril. So those are entry points for air. All right. So contain hairs to trap dust and large particles. So inside our nose there is air to trap dust and large particles. Okay. Then also lined with mucus to trap smaller particles. So that's why inside our nose it is moist, meaning it is wet like what makes it to be wet like is a mucus. The mucus there trap smaller particles, right? So the nostril is as part of the respiratory system. It is an entry point for air, contains hairs to trap dust and large particles, lined with mucus to trap smaller particles. Then next we talk about the nasal cavity. So the nasal cavity, after the nostrils, there's that whole space there. The space here, it is the nasal cavity now, that space. So we are saying nasal cavity warms incoming air to body temperature. So when air reaches there, it has to be warmed so that it attains the body temperature or reaches the body temperature. Okay, then moistens air to prevent damage to delicate lung tissue. So it makes the air to be moist or to be wet so that the air does not damage to delicate or soft lung tissue. Then further filters air. So it also helps to ensure that air is again filtered. All right. Yeah. So next, after the nasal cavity, we talk about the trachea or windpipe. So from there, we find the larynx or pharynx. Those we don't talk about them much, but we talk about much concerning the trachea here. So now we come to the trachea, which is known as the windpipe. All right. So now the trachea conducts air from the throat to lungs, or helps to move air from what? From the um, from the throat to the lungs. So this one from the throat, it helps to move now the air to the lungs. So it helps to conduct air from the throat to the lungs. All right. So reinforced with these C-shaped cartilage rings to prevent collapse. So it has a C-shaped cartilage. So it is made up of like cartilage. If I zoom, these are like cartilage rings here. So these help it from being uh, collapsing. So those prevent it from uh, collapsing. Okay. So then we are saying lined with ciliated epithelium and mucus secreting cells. So it has also some um, ciliated epithelium cells and mucus secreting cells. Okay, so cilia sweeps mucus and trapped particles upwards toward the throat. So those cilia which are there, they ensure that they sweep any trapped particles towards the throat, so that when you cough, you spit out uh, the mucus with particles there. All right. So cilia sweep mucus and the trapped particles upward toward the throat. Then after the trachea, we have what we call the bronchi or bronchi, singular bronchus. So here we have, after the trachea, we have the bronchi. In fact, there are two, one going to the right lung, another one going to the left. Or if this is the left, this one is the right. Okay, so we have the bronchi, singular bronchus, two tubes. So these are two tubes that branch from the trachea. One bronchus enters each lung, then also reinforced with the cartilage. So these ones, they have also cartilage, okay, rings. Then from the bronchi we have the bronchioles or bronchioles. So these are smaller air passages that branch from the bronchi or bronchi inside the lungs. So after now we have this bronchi. Yeah, it can also be pronounced as bronchi. Yeah, something like that, which makes a little bit sense. So this bronchi can branch into smaller ones. Those smaller ones now are called bronchus or bronchioles. Biology also with terms bronchioles, something like that. So bronchioles, yes. So bronchioles, smaller air passages that branch from bronchi inside the lungs. So no cartilage, these do not have cartilage, but have smooth muscle. Uh, they have smooth muscle that can contract or relax. So this one progressively becomes smaller and more numerous. So progressively, as you go deeper into the lung, they become smaller and numerous, or many in number, because they continue splitting into many branches. Okay, then next now we go to the alveoli. Alveoli, which you are going to see later, these are tiny air sacs at the end of a bronch. So the tiny air sacs. So those should be the tiny air sacs. Let me see if I can extract it from here so that we discuss it in advance before in advance. Just wait. Because I had to push it further. So let's just get it from here, and then let us bring it there so that we begin discussing whilst it is present with us here. Alright, so this is the alveoli. So this alveoli is attached to the what? To the bronchioles. So the alveoli or alveoli, yes, singular alveoli, alveoli plural, singular alveolus. So these are tiny air sacs at the end of bronchioles. approximately 300 millions in human lungs. There are many. There are tiny, smaller air sacs that are at the end of bronchioles. So they are site for gaseous exchange. So this one it's the one. So this one it goes to a broncho. At the end you find the carrier sac like a small balloon, so that it's the site for gaseous exchange. So surrounded by a network of blood capillaries. So this one, if we zoom in, you'll find that it is actually surrounded. So you see this one, it's a blood capillary. This one here passing around. So it has many, so that there's that diffusion. So you see blood wall, capillary wall. So this one, it's a capillary itself. So yeah, okay. So features um, that make alveolus efficient for gaseous exchange. Like we are saying, if we are saying that the alveoli is a site for gaseous exchange, what makes it so special to be a site for gaseous exchange? That's what now we are discussing. So we are talking of features that make alveoli efficient for gaseous exchange. The first feature is that they are very thin. They have very thin walls. So very thin walls, one cell thick. So the walls here are quite thin, like the size of one cell. Okay. That is number one. The number two, moist surfaces. So there are surfaces inside there, they are moist or they are wet. All right. So that allows gas to dissolve before diffusing. So gas, before it diffuses in the blood, it has to dissolve. All right. Then number two, um, large total surface area. So the alveoli has large surface area, approximately 70 square meters in adults. Then rich blood supply. It has rich blood supply. So it has a dense network of capillaries. Then another one is elastic fibers. So allows expansion during breathing and recoil during expiration. All right, so this is it. Then another part of the, so another structure of the respiratory system is diaphragm. So we talk of the diaphragm, the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is a dome-shaped sheet of muscles below the lungs. So let's see if did I close that one? No. So these notes will be sent to you guys, so do not worry. I just need to pull up the diaphragm. Is it on top? It is on top. It is on top here of this face diagram, right? So let me just do like this and try maybe to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, this here is a diaphragm. That's the one we are talking about. Let's just get it and view it from this side here. Yeah, except that this space here is small for our diaphragm. Okay, so let's do like this. Let me push our diaphragm here. Okay. Yeah, so this is our diaphragm that we are talking about. So now we are saying it is a dome-shaped sheet of muscle below the lungs. So this one separates thoracic cavity from abdominal cavity. So the thoracic cavity is a space where you find the lungs, okay, the lungs, the heart. Then the abdominal cavity is the space where you find the stomach and the intestine. So there is that separation which is there even in animals, chicken, what? When you're killing them, you find that there is that layer of muscle which separates the stomach, where you find the intestines and the stomach itself, and then the other section where you find the lungs, and then the heart and the liver. Yeah, something like that. So that is the diaphragm. So separates thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. So it is the main muscle responsible for breathing. So this guy here, it is the main muscle that is responsible for breathing. Despite or other than just it being a boundary, it also helps in breathing. Then afterwards, we have what we call intercostal muscles. These are muscles between the ribs. Let me see if we can view them here. All right, so you see, these are the ribs. We have the ribs, okay? Cut end of the ribs, those. So now, in between now, if this one is a rib, this one is a rib, in between, we have what we call external intercostal muscle. So we have the outside one, it will be called external intercostal. Let's try to zoom in a bit if we can manage to see. Yes. So this white part and this one, it is a rib. From this end here, cut end of rib. Then now, this muscle outside here, it is the one called external intercostal muscle. Then the one inside, it is the one called internal intercostal muscle. All right, so you see now what we are talking about. So now we are saying intercostal muscles, muscles between the ribs. So we have external intercostal muscles used during inspiration, breathing in. Then internal intercostal muscles used during forced expiration, when air is being removed. So these work together with the diaphragm to change chest cavity volume. So these, together with the diaphragm, they work together to change the volume of the cavity in the chest. Okay, so now that we have discussed about the respiratory organs in fish, we have discussed respiratory organ in insect, now and also human beings. Now we move on according to the syllabus. We need now to go to what we call mechanism of gaseous exchange in animals. So mechanism of gaseous exchange in animals. So let's talk about it. Meaning of mechanism of gaseous exchange. We are saying the mechanism of gaseous exchange refers to how oxygen enters the body and how carbon dioxide is removed. So when we talk of the mechanism of gaseous exchange, we are referring to the gaseous exchange in which oxygen enters the body and then carbon dioxide is removed from the body. So this includes, okay, so we are saying including, one, the organs involved, the movement that occur, the diffusion process, the concentration gradients that drive the process. So all these encounter or encompass or involve what we call mechanism of gaseous exchange. All right. So now let's move now to the next stage. So now, when we talk of mechanism now of gaseous exchange, mechanism of gaseous exchange in humans. So now that we understand what mechanism of gaseous exchange is, now let's go now in humans. We talk about the one for humans. So mechanism of gaseous exchange in humans. So we are saying in humans, gaseous exchange occurs through too many processes. So the gaseous exchange of breathing in oxygen into the body and out carbon dioxide from the body occurs through too many processes. Number one, breathing, which is ventilation. So, breathing or ventilation, we are saying the physical movement of air into and out of the body. That is mechanism number one, or process number one of gaseous exchange in human. First of all, breathing, which includes the physical movement of air into and outside of the lungs. Then another process is the gaseous exchange, which is the diffusion of gases between alveolar air and the blood. So that diffusion of gases between the alveolar air and the blood. All right, now these processes work together to ensure continuous oxygen supply and carbon dioxide removal. So these two processes, they work together to ensure that there is continuous oxygen supply and carbon dioxide removal, these two. So when you are breathing air in and out, you are ensuring that carbon dioxide enters, then carbon dioxide comes out, oxygen enters. Okay. Again, when there's gaseous exchange, which is the diffusion of gases between alveolar air and blood, that also ensures that oxygen enters and reaches the body cells, carbon dioxide leaves the body cells. Okay. Now, let's now first begin with breathing. We'll get to gaseous exchange later. All right. So now we are on breathing, which is inspiration. Breathing in. Now we are on breathing in. Breathing is in two, breathing in and breathing out. Now we are in breathing in. Definition. What is breathing in or inspiration? Inspiration is the process by which air is drawn into the lungs from the atmosphere. So inspiration or breathing in is the process by which air is drawn into the lungs from the atmosphere. It is an active process that requires energy and muscle contraction. So it is an active process, meaning it happens, it doesn't happen like passively, it is active. Okay, so now, how does air move? Path of air during breathing in. So here is the process. Air from the nostril, where does it go? It goes to the nasal cavity. From the nasal cavity, pharynx, throat, larynx, which is the vocal or voice box, then trachea, bronchi, then bronchioles, then alveoli last. So when you are breathing in, this is the route that air is going to follow. All right? Then how inspiration occurs? So inspiration occurs in this way. Number one, the diaphragm contracts and flattens. So here the diaphragm, when air is getting in, it contracts. To contract, it is become smaller. The muscles, they tighten themselves. That's what we mean that it contracts. Okay? So what we are saying is it starts by the diaphragm contracts and flattens. So if this process happens, it moves downward from its dome shape. So here the diaphragm is there, moves downward. Next, the external intercostal muscles contract. So those external intercostal muscles we talked about, they contract, pulling the rib cage. So pulling the rib cage. I don't know what that message has come from. Oh yeah. Outlook. Okay. So we are saying the external intercostal muscles contract, pulling the rib cage upwards and outward. So those external, they contract as well. What happens? They pull the rib cage upward. So when you breathe in, like, try to observe your chest. Your chest goes up and expands. Why? because the intercostal muscles have contracted. So intercostal muscles contracts, pulling the rib cage upward and outward. Okay, then these muscle contractions increase the volume of the thoracic or chest cavity. So these now, they will cause the whole inside the chest to be bigger, the space inside the chest to be bigger. That's what we mean when we say these muscle contractions increase the volume of the thoracic or chest cavity. Now, as volume increases or space inside there increases, air pressure inside the lungs decreases. Because we have increased the space is more than what was there. So now, even in the air which was there now, the pressure has reduced. The pressure decreases. So the volume, as volume increases, air pressure inside the lungs decreases, becomes lower than atmospheric pressure. So the pressure inside there is less than the pressure outside. Now what happens? Then we are saying air moves from an area of high pressure, which is atmosphere, to low pressure, which is lungs. So now after you breathe in, it means that the pressure now inside the lungs becomes lower, but the volume increases, and therefore air moves from the atmosphere into the lungs. This is called pressure gradient. Okay, so now from there, oxygen rich air enters the lungs and fills the alveoli. You have seen. So this is what happens when you breathe in. You need to be able to explain these stages. Of course, you can summarize them to say during expiration, the diaphragm contracts and flattens, the external intercostal muscles contracts, pulling the rib cage upwards and downwards. These muscles increases the volume of the chest cavity. As the volume increases, air pressure inside the lungs decreases. Then air moves from the atmosphere to the lungs. Then oxygen-rich air enters the lungs and fills the alveoli. Okay? So here, key point. So, key point here, inspiration is an active process because it requires muscle contraction and uses energy. That's what they mean. It requires muscles and energy. All right. So next now, we talk about now gaseous exchange. After the air has entered and filled up the alveoli, so the air has come, making the alveoli full. Now there will be gaseous exchange. So let's talk about gaseous exchange at the alveoli. So definition of gaseous exchange, we are saying this is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air in the alveoli and the blood in the surrounding capillaries. So it's the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air in the alveoli and the blood in the surrounding capillaries. This occurs by diffusion along concentration gradient. So it occurs by diffusion, meaning that for the oxygen to go in the blood here, for this oxygen coming to enter the bloodstream here, there is a concentration gradient. Concentration gradient meaning difference. Here the concentration in the alveoli of oxygen, the concentration of oxygen in the alveoli is higher than in the capillaries, and because of that, definitely automatically oxygen will start going where it is in a low concentration by the process called diffusion. And then also in this blood here, there is high concentration, especially this side here, there is high concentration of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is more in the blood this side than where? Than in the alveoli. Therefore, it is going also to diffuse from the blood into the alveoli so that it is breathed out. That's why blood low in oxygen comes from the heart here. Then carbon dioxide diffuses from blood to be exhaled. Okay, so red blood cells, those are to my red blood cells. That's how they look. Okay, then gases diffuse in moist mucus. So gases as they come, they will diffuse in moist mucus there. Okay, so now this one, now it is oxygen, it diffuses into the blood now. So here you see oxygen transported around body by red blood cells. So as oxygen enters, it has to join the red blood cells. So these red blood cells now, blood low in carbon dioxide, high in oxygen, is transported to the heart so that it is pumped to the rest of the body. So now this is the whole of this thing. It is a blood capillary. So inside there it is the tube, then this is the wall, capillary wall. All right, then this wall here, it is called the alveoli wall. Okay, so air moves in and out of alveolus. So this one is moving out, carbon dioxide. This one is moving in, which is oxygen. Okay, so that is gaseous exchange, ladies and gentlemen. So we are saying uh, this is the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air in the alveoli and the blood in the surrounding capillaries. Okay, so we are saying this occurs by diffusion, a long concentration gradient. So are why alveoli are suitable for gaseous exchange? What makes alveoli special for gaseous exchange? This is what we already talked. We are saying the alveoli have several adaptations that make them ideal for efficient gaseous exchange. Number one, thin walls. We talked about it. Moist surface, large total surface area, rich blood supply, and elastic walls. Okay. Now let's talk about process of gas exchange. How does it happen now? We are saying oxygen exchange. Oxygen concentration is higher in the alveoli than in the deoxygenated blood in the capillaries. So the blood in the capillaries is deoxygenated, meaning it doesn't have oxygen, whilst the alveoli has higher concentration of oxygen. That's why I'm saying the oxygen concentration is higher in the alveoli than in the deoxygenated blood in the capillaries. Oxygen diffuses from the alveolar air through the alveolar wall, through the capillary wall, and into the blood. So oxygen will diffuse from the alveolar air. So air which is here, it's known as the alveolar air, then through the walls. So that one is the alveolar wall, that one, alveolar wall, into the capillary wall, into the blood. That's what we are talking about here when we say oxygen diffuses from the alveolar air through the alveolar wall, through the capillary wall, and into the blood. Okay, oxygen binds to hemoglobin in red blood cells to form what is known as oxyhemoglobin. So this oxygen, once it enters, it will go to a red blood cell, and inside the red blood cell bind or bond or join with the hemoglobin to form one substance called oxyhemoglobin, that one there. So oxygenated blood is carried away to body tissues. That's what happens with the process of gaseous exchange in terms of oxygen. Now let's talk about carbon dioxide exchange. So here we say carbon dioxide concentration is higher in the blood than alveoli. Okay, so carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood through the capillary wall, through the alveolar wall, and into the alveolar air. Carbon dioxide then removed from the lungs during expiration, which is breathing out. Okay, so we move now to another process, which is now, before we go there, we're saying remember Diffusion occurs because of concentration gradient. Concentration gradient means because of differences in concentration. Whenever there is a place where, whenever a situation happens that in one region there is more gas and in another region there is less, and these regions are closer to each other, then we can say there exists a concentration gradient between these two regions. And therefore, automatically, there will be movement of that thing which is in higher concentration from that region where it is in high concentration to the other region where there is low concentration of that thing, to bring about what we call concentration equilibrium. There should be equilibrium or equal concentration. All right, so now gases move from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration. So that was just a reminder there. Now we come into breathing out, which is expiration, which is the removal of gases from the lungs, okay, which is part of gaseous exchange here. All right, so now let's proceed now to explaining. So we are saying breathing out or expiration. So expiration or expiration, yeah, this word also. Expiration is the process by which air is expelled from the lungs, removing carbon dioxide. At rest, it is a passive process that does not require energy. So this one doesn't require energy, okay? So that is how it is. So breathing out or expiration is the process by which air is expelled from the lungs, removing carbon dioxide. At rest, it is a passive process that does not require energy. Now, we are saying that how expiration occurs. We are saying, one, the diaphragm does what? Relaxes and returns to its dome-shaped position, moves upwards. Okay, so the diaphragm will move upward. Okay, then the external intercostal muscles relax, causing the rib cage to move downwards and inwards. Like when you breathe the air out, what happens? The diaphragm there relaxes. Then what happens? Intercostal muscles also relaxes. The rib cage move downwards and inward. Then the elastic recoil of the lungs helps push air out. So air is pushed out. So we are saying the thoracic cavity volume decreases. So inside there will be volume will decrease inside there. Volume will decrease. Air pressure inside the lungs increases. So that is what will happen. Inside there will be air pressure. So becomes higher than atmospheric pressure. What happens? Carbon dioxide, rich air, is forced out of the lungs through the airways. So because of that process, carbon dioxide will come out. Okay. Now let's talk about paths or path of air during expiration. How air moves. So it is the reverse of inspiration. So it will move from the alveoli to the bronchioles to the bronchi to the trachea, larynx, pharynx, nasal cavity, then nostrils, then outside. So key points here. Normal expiration at rest is passive. No muscle contraction required, just relaxation. Forced expiration, e.g. during exercise, coughing, is active and involves contraction of internal intercostal muscles and abdominal muscles. So elastic recoil of the lung tissue helps push air out. Now summary. In summary, we are comparing inspiration versus expiration or expiration. So we are saying feature. type of process. Okay, so we go to inspiration, active. Okay, then expiration, at rest, it is passive, no energy needed. Diaphragm, in inspiration, contracts and flattens. In expiration, relaxes and becomes dome-shaped. External intercostal muscles, in inspiration, contracts. In expiration, relax. Rib cage movement, in inspiration, up and out. Expiration, down and in. Okay, then in terms of thoracic cavity volume, in inspiration increases, expiration decreases. Very important. So we are done with the mechanism of gaseous exchange in humans. We move on now to mechanism of gaseous exchange. Before we go that, there is one part remaining. Lung pressure. In inspiration, decrease below atmospheric. In expiration, increases above atmospheric. Air movement, air flows in inspiration, then in expiration, air flows out. Right. Now we move on to mechanism of gaseous exchange in what? In fish. So we are saying fish live in water and therefore obtain oxygen that is dissolved in water. So the fish will live in water. Because they live in water, they will obtain the oxygen that is dissolved in water. So water contains as well oxygen. So here we are saying that their bodies are adapted for gaseous exchange through special organs called gills, which allow oxygen to enter the blood and carbon dioxide to be removed. All right, so that's how it is. So the bodies of a fish, because it lives in water, is adapted for that type of gaseous exchange through a special organ called a gill, which allow oxygen to enter the blood and carbon dioxide to be removed. Now let's talk about respiratory organs involved. What are some of the respiratory organs involved? So the main organs involved in gaseous exchange in fish are mouth. For what? For taking in water. 2. Gills, with gill filament and lamella for gaseous exchange. Then 3. Opacrum, for pumping water and protecting gills. So these are the major organs. So when we come here, this is what happens. We have inhalation and exhalation, which is inspiration or expiration. All right. So now let's talk about how gaseous exchange occurs in fish. 1. Water intake. Water must first enter. So here we are saying water intake. Mouth opens and water enters. So the fish will open the mouth and water enters. Then mouth closes and water forced over gills, filaments, and the gill lamella. So this is the mouth of the fish. When it opens, the water will enter inside. When the mouth closes, water gets to be forced over the nancan, the gill filament, and the lamella. So here the opacrum is closed. So you see here the opacrum must be closed. Okay. So now, yeah. So the opacrum remains closed during this phase to prevent water from escaping. Yeah. So when the water enters, the fish closes the mouth. The opacrum is closed to make sure that the water doesn't come out through this immediately. So that's how gaseous exchange occurs. First, the mouth opens and water enters. Mouth closes and water forced over gills, filaments, and gill lamella. The operculum remains closed during this phase to prevent water from escaping. Okay? Now let's talk about gaseous exchange. So we go now to gaseous exchange. So gas exchange occurs. After that, gas exchange now should occur. What happens? The gills are highly adapted for efficient gas exchange because they have one, a large surface area. So these gills here, they're adapted for gaseous exchange. One, because they have large surface area. Then two, thin walls. Then three, a rich supply of blood capillaries. So now, as water flows over the gills now, which are adapted like this, what happens now? Oxygen in uptake. So oxygen high in water diffuses into the blood because there is high concentration of oxygen in water. So oxygen high in water diffuses into blood. Okay, so oxygen is then transported around the body. All right, so that is what happens. Okay, all right, let's come up here. So that is how oxygen gets to be moved. Let's talk about carbon dioxide now. Carbon dioxide removal. Carbon dioxide now, high in the blood, diffuses into the water. Okay, so let's talk about now water exit. So operculum opens and water exits. So you have seen. So there, after carbon dioxide has been removed, so carbon dioxide, because it is high in the blood, it will diffuse in the water. Then afterward, how does water comes out? This is why we are saying water exit. Operculum opens and water exits. That is it. All right. Then let's now explain this process called counter current flows. We are saying fish. So this process actually, it is not in your syllabus. So we may ignore it, but we can talk about it. We are saying fish gills use a highly efficient counter current exchange system. Blood in the gill capillaries flow in the opposite direction to the flow of to the flow to the water flowing over the gill. So if water is moving like this, so that it becomes out, uh, blood flows in the opposite direction. That's what we mean. So blood in the gill capillaries flows in the opposite direction to the water flowing over the gills. So this means that blood that is already partially oxygenated continues to meet water with even higher oxygen concentration. It means that if this side it received some oxygen which is not more, but as it continues going this way, it will start meeting water. Okay, let me zoom a little bit. So if this capillary goes like that, blood is flowing like that, then water is moving like this with oxygen. So this blood which is here, it will receive some oxygen, right? But as it continues going, it will meet water which has more oxygen, and it will continue getting filled up. That's what this process is trying to explain here. So they're saying this means that blood that is already partially oxygenated continues to meet water with even a higher oxygen concentration. So we are saying a concentration gradient is maintained along the entire length of the gill lamella. This allows the fish to extract up to 80% of the dissolved oxygen from water, much more efficient than parallel flow would be. Okay, so now let's now go to mechanism of gaseous exchange in insect. Like, how does gaseous exchange occur in insect? That's what we want to now tackle. So here the lesson will be finishing. It was not supposed to finish here, but I've seen that it is quite long, 1 hour 9 minutes. So When we finish this one, we shall continue, we shall finish the other part in the next lesson. So now we go to mechanism of gaseous exchange in insects. So we are saying insects do not use lungs or blood to transport gases. Instead, they use a tracheal system which allows oxygen to reach body cells directly and carbon dioxide to be removed efficiently. This is a completely different system from that used by fish and mammals. So we come to respiratory organs involved in mechanism of gaseous in insects. So we say respiratory organs involved. The respiratory system of insects consists of spiracles, which we already talked about, openings from air for air entry and exit. Then in trachea, main air tubes. Then in tracheals, fine tubes reaching individual cells. Okay. Now we go to how gaseous exchange occurs in insect. So we'll start to air entry. Air enters through spiracles. So this is the surface of an organism. This is the outside of the insect, inside of the insect. On the surface of the insect, here is a spiracle and the hole. So there now we are saying air entry. Okay, how gaseous exchange occurs in insect. Air entry first. We are saying air enters through spiracle. It will enter through there. Then air travels through trachea to tracheals. So it will travel through the trachea, this one. Then it will reach those smaller ones, which are tracheals. Okay. So we are saying the trachea branch into progressively finer tubes called the tracheals. So meaning that the trachea continuously will start branching into smaller tubes called the tracheals. These tracheals now extend to all parts of the body. So the tracheals now will extend to all parts of the body. All right. So let's continue. So So as they extend to all parts of the body, what happens? They come into close contact with the individual cells. So they will start meeting cells there. So have very thin walls. So these guys have very thin walls, 1 cell thick, contain some fluid at their tips. So at their end, they will contain some fluid. So now gas exchange itself. So oxygen high in concentration in the tracheals diffuses into the cells. So here, oxygen which is high in these tracheals will diffuse into the cells. Okay. Then oxygen is used immediately for cell respiration. So oxygen will be used also for cell respiration. So insects as well, they are breathing oxygen. No wonder they are found also on Earth with us here together. Okay. Now, no blood or respiratory pigments is involved in oxygen transport. So carbon dioxide high in concentration in the cells diffuses into the trachea. So in the cells there is a high concentration of carbon dioxide. So it will diffuse into the trachea so that it comes out. So let's now talk about air exit, like air now coming out. So we are saying that carbon dioxide diffuses from the cells into the tracheals. So carbon dioxide from the cells enters the tracheals. Okay. Now the carbon dioxide then moves through the trachea. So it will move through the trachea here. Finally, it is released to the outside through the spiracles. Then it is released to the outside through these spiracles. So key point, directly delivery, no blood needed in this system. So now we talk of ventilation in larger or more active insects. So we are saying that this is the same breathing process. We are saying while smaller insects rely entirely on diffusion, larger or more active insects use additional mechanism, muscle movements of the abdomen, pump air in and out. Okay, this creates mass flow of air through the tracheal system. So what we are saying that this same uh, mechanism of gaseous exchange in insects In some smaller one, it is like passive, but in bigger insects, it is more like active. Okay, so ventilation in larger or more active insects, like those acts which are bigger, we're saying, while smaller insects rely entirely on diffusion. So smaller insects, no breathing, it is just diffusion. But we are saying large or more active insects use additional mechanisms. So them, they need now muscles to contract and relax. So these, we are saying, muscular movements of the abdominal pump air in and out. This creates mass flow of air through the tracheal system. Okay, so now this increases the rate of gas exchange during high activity. Okay, now let's talk about composition of inspired and expired air. We are now talking about what air actually is found in the what gases are actually found in the air we breathe out and in the air we breathe in. That's what we mean composition of inspired and expired air. So here we are saying understanding the differences between inspired, which is inhaled air breathed in, and expired, which is exhaled. Yeah, these terms also. Air helps us understand what happens during gaseous exchange in the lungs. So let us talk about comparison table here. So let us talk of the component of air in the component of gases in the air. The first one is oxygen. In inspired air, the air that we are breathing in, how much oxygen is there? Approximately 21%. In the expired air, the air that we are breathing out, how much oxygen is there? Approximately 16%. Explanation why is the difference? Because oxygen is absorbed into the blood at the alveoli for use in cellular expiration. So meaning the about 7% or 5% which is missing here, it has been used for cellular respiration. The other one comes out and used because it may not be needed. Then carbon dioxide, you find that oh, not here, I'm not saying because it is not needed. No, that is a wrong explanation. Why this 16% comes out is because when you breathe in, like you breathe, so air doesn't take much time to stay there, so that all of it is diffused. So as you breathe, so that one which manages to enter, then you breathe out. As you push, some of it will be pushed immediately. So 16% comes out, then the other one is able to diffuse and being used. Of course, that is an explanation, and the other one because of being used. Yeah. Then let's talk about carbon dioxide. The air we breathe in has about 0.04% of carbon dioxide. Now that we breathe out has got about 4%, so it is more. When we breathe in oxygen, which is about 0.04%, the one we breathe out is actually 4%, which is more. Why? Because carbon dioxide is a waste product of cellular respiration. It released from body, from blood into the alveoli. Meaning, when we breathe in air, we also breathe carbon dioxide, which is already in the environment. And that carbon dioxide we breathe is already at 0.04%. But as we breathe out, the other carbon dioxide, which is released from cell respiration, gets to be added so that the composition now of carbon dioxide as it come out is at 4%. It has increased. It increases. All right. Then nitrogen. Nitrogen, the air we breathe in has 78% of nitrogen. The one we breathe out has also 78%. Why? Because nitrogen is not used by the body, so its percentage remains constant. Yes. Then water vapor, variable, usually low. When we are breathing in, the water vapor is low, but when we breathe out, it is high or saturated. Why? Moisture is added to air as it passes through the moist respiratory surfaces. So yeah, that is the reason. Then temperature, atmospheric temperature. So the air that we breathe in is at atmospheric temperature. The one that we breathe out, body temperature, is at body temperature, which is 37 degrees Celsius. Why? As air is warmed as it passes through the warm respiratory passage. So in our body we are warm. So as air is moving out of our body, it is also being warmed. Then in terms of dust particles, the air we breathe in has dust particles present. In terms of the air we breathe out, absent or greatly reduced. The air we breathe out might have less, but the one we breathe in has a lot. Why? Dust is filtered out by hairs in the nostrils and trapped by mucus uh, in airways. Okay. Okay. All right. What is happening? Okay. So now, key points to remember. Expired air has less oxygen because it is used in respiration. Then expired air has more carbon dioxide because it is produced by respiration. Expired air has more water vapor because it picks up moisture from respiratory surfaces. Then expired air is warmer because it is heated by body temperature. Then the nitrogen content remains the same because it is not used by the body. Then dust is removed by filtration in the respiratory passage. So we wanted to continue from effect of air pollution on human health, but to end here because the video now or the lesson has become too long, which is around 1 hour 21 minutes. So we are ending here, ladies and gentlemen. For now, bye and see you in the next lesson.